There are multiple different ways to cross-cut wood for projects. My particular need today is I've been making these wooden lanterns. There's a card to the video up there. And I need to figure out how to more precisely make them quicker. So a couple different ways to cross-cut wood. Table saw with the supplied miter gauge. The problem that I ran into this is since it's got, D-tenths instead of angles, it doesn't hardly ever go back to 90. I've got to fidget with it quite a bit. If you're making larger pieces and you got a short area to rest your wood against, and it can, tip around and all that stuff. So the other method is on the miter saw. I've been setting up stop blocks on my fence and cutting them, but I just want something a little bit more precise. So we're gonna make a small parts crosscut sled. If you want to make it super fancy, you can. This is just simple, easy to put together, just to make, crosscut pieces that are about, 3/4 inches wide by 7 or 8 inches long. So we're not going to do any T-track, we're not going to do any sliding stop blocks, we're not going to do any tapering jigs, we're just simple crosscut sled. So let's get into it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make runners to fit in our miter slots here. So take my micrometer, it's a digital but I lost the battery, so this will work. We're just going to gauge the inside of our miter slot, and then we'll set our fence up to the inside of our blade here. So I set my miter just a tad bit proud, that way I can sneak up on a perfect fit for this. Go ahead and lower my blade here, and we'll cut a couple slots here. Plug it in. So it's just a tad bit tight, so I'll move in just a hair. In fact, it actually doesn't even fit, so we'll move it in just a little bit. So, perfect example why you use test pieces first. The first one I got, you can see that is entirely too loose. So the second one, that's a tight fit. It still slides pretty smoothly. So I'll go ahead and cut my actual runners to size here, and then we'll get to assembly of the base. So I got so excited that those runners fit so nicely that I forgot to film it when I was cutting my permanent slider. So I took a couple pieces of hard maple, cut them to size. I'm thinking that as the humidity rises and falls here, these will probably swell up a little bit. If they do, I'll wax it or something. I probably should use plywood or something else. But these have been in my garage for probably a year now, so maybe they'll be okay. Maybe they won't. If not, we'll deal with that later. So my track, or my miter, so my miter has these little T-tracks on the bottom, and I don't want these sitting all the way down at the bottom, so I'm gonna elevate them, raise them up, stick my sled bottom to them, glue them down, and then come back later and reinforce it with some screws. So I'm just gonna take 2 pennies, drop them in my miter slots here. I'll set my gap to raise them off the table. Hindsight, shouldn't have done that. So set your pennies in, get your guides in there. It is proud of the table. I should probably be using CA glue, but I don't have any, so we're just gonna use wood glue and then put a couple dabs on it. Be careful you don't glue it to your table, and you don't want a bunch of squeeze out that you gotta clean up off your tabletop. So I'll just put a couple dabs in there, and I'll come back and reinforce those with some screws later on. So I've got my edges pretty much straight on. Don't line this up with your fence, because we are actually going to come back later and square up the fence, the back fence, with the blade. So just get it approximate. Like I said, CA glue would have been better here. I don't have any, so I think the joiner makes a perfect clamp here. There you go, we'll let that set for a little bit. So I've let this set for about an hour and a half, I think. Let's go ahead and get the makeshift wood clamp off here and see how she works. Yeah, it slides pretty nice. Pennies back here. So it's kind of what we're left with. This is a scrap wood that I'm using for the base. So we're going to take a couple screws, go ahead and pre-drill, countersink these in, and then we'll set our front fence on, start working on the back fence. Here's a number 8 by 1/2 inch Phillips head screws. I got them screwed down. I went ahead and recessed them. I know there's a penny, about 2 penny gap clearance, but went ahead and recessed them. Get it put in there. Yeah, should work. So it runs pretty smooth. We'll wax down the bottom of the sled and then the tabletop runners, and that'll free it up. But next we're going to go ahead and mount the front fence here. This does not need to be square. The only purpose of this is to once we put our cut down in the center, so literally honestly it's literally just to hold the thing together. So what I did is I went ahead and marked out my throat plate opening here so I don't put any screws right in that area. We'll just pre-drill. I'll glue the front face up. I'll get it square-ish. Again, front face does not matter. It doesn't matter if it's square or not. I don't need to drill through my tabletop. So I think I'll go ahead and put some glue in here. Get her screwed down, clamp down, screw it down. Just hanging off the back here. So just pre-drilled some holes, slide out the back of my table saw, threw a little glue on there, clamp it down, screw it into place, make it square-ish. Doesn't have to be perfect. Literally just holding it together. That's it. So next thing I need to do is cut a slot through the center of this thing, and I can't do it with my riving knife on, so I'm just gonna pop that out real quick. Put my throat plate back on. The right way would be, put your throat plate back on, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna slide it over, and I'm going to raise my blade through it. And then after that, we'll put the back fence on, square it up to the kerf mark of the blade, and see how she works. What I'm gonna do is turn the table saw on. I'll plug it back in first. Turn my table saw on and then raise my blade through the bottom of this. About right here. Don't cut all the way through yet, because so we got our kerf mark for our blade. We can work on getting our back fence put up, squared up, and start cutting. It's not at all necessary, but I went ahead and jointed a face and the one edge so I could get this perfectly square. We will not, do not glue down your back fence because you have to move it to get it square. So I'm gonna go ahead and put one screw in this side, try to square it up to my kerf line, go ahead and screw this side down, and then make sure it's square. there's that. So now we got to, I'll go ahead and cut straight through it, and then we'll work on getting this thing squared up before we attach the rest of our screws. So let's get to it. I realize this video is getting kind of long, so I'll do another video on how to square your fence up. For now, this thing is done. I've got it squared up, it's functional, it's very simple. You can make it at home. You don't need a bunch of fancy tools to do it. You don't need to put T-track in for stop blocks. I'll just use a piece of wood, measure it out, and a simple clamp to make my repeatable cuts. So very accurate, very easy to make. So thanks for watching another video from 131.